Lately, I've been thinking what is not yet out there when it comes to bike content, and my conclusion was everything has already been done. Thank you guys for watching. That was a joke. Quite funny, wasn't it? At this channel, we never run out of ideas. So we went online, did some magical typing, grabbed our face masks, jumped in a car to visit the dark streets of the lowlands, and purchased a sweet retro-converted bike that had a frame that was rather wonky from some collision to show you today. How to build a bike.
Not.
When you purchase a second-hand bike, assess the state and then carefully disassemble the bike part by part. But feel free to use your own preferred method to do this. Remove everything that has a value of more than €4 off the bike when you are not going to build a bike like I show you today. Subsequently, use the parts from some bikes you pulled out of a kennel to replace the parts you just removed. This bike will do the job. Make sure to prevent using the correct tool for the job. Instead of a wide flat screwdriver, use a little steel plate and water pump pliers. This will give you more moment anyways. Another thing that you should definitely do is store all little fasteners and parts in a safe location, by for example throwing them somewhere randomly. Never forget that WD-40 is your best friend when it comes to building a bike. Use it without any restriction. If you are viewing carefully, you now might think that is actually the correct tool. You shouldn't use a crank puller. You are right, but all I want to show you here is that it is mandatory to screw the crank puller in not far enough, resulting in you flattening the thread entirely and assuring the success rate of this crank removal goes down to 0. It is an unwritten but generally accepted standard that you should at least make one crank unusable before getting it right and removing a crank successfully. Also, you can drastically increase your builder credits by successfully removing a crank with the most amount of rust as possible. This one is a good attempt. After spraying it with some more WD-40, grab Babushka's potato knife and blunt it a little by pointlessly poking at the rust. It seems strange, but this is sort of a ritual. You have to do this. Now whack a socket wrench in and use a hammer to get a firm grip on the target bolt. Remove this little ring and get ready for round 2 of crank pulling action. Make sure to prevent correct alignment when you screw this thing in. Just force it through the screw thread. If there is no thread, just create it with enough power of will and the chunkiest adjustable spanner you can find. If you see any dents on the square, conical inside of the crank, consider those the battle scars of the bike. In human terms, we call it experience, and it is a widely accepted term for respect if you can show you possess it. When it comes to rustiness, this next nut would score off scale, with an absolutely lovely arrangement of crispiness and dry dusty rust crumbs around it. Not something some good old WD-40 can't fix though. If you have followed all steps in this video so far carefully, you might find yourself in a situation where all the gentle hammering on your socket wrench might have gotten a bolt stuck in it. You can easily remove this by clamping the bolt on its thread. You know, the thread ensures good grip like this. Now this accomplishment should be your motivation of the build. Once you have successfully removed the crank, there's nothing in the way between you and an absolute beast of a bike. Here's a close-up of how the crank removal should actually look like. Pretty nice, isn't it? Make sure to leave all this brown crap on, it ensures a tight fit. Yet another cool close-up. Such a videographer is insane. Make sure you occasionally drop some parts. If you do so, it ensures the people around you that although you might be a bike-building god entity, you are still human by showing these fake tiny traits of mankind. It is already time to get back to reassembling this bit. You might ask, how about painting? I will address this option later. When you are not building a bike, you follow a different assembling strategy than conventionally. Make sure you round off the bolt with the socket wrench. This is simply brilliant. Disables anyone from removing this crank ever again. Best anti-theft mechanism in the world. Time to get rid of the old pedals and screw in the worst looking flat pedals you can find. If you struggle to rotate this wrench, just grab a hammer and hammer away on the wrench. It's not like you should be careful with your tools, just use them what they were designed for, which is hammering on them. And now for possibly the best tip of this video, spray paint your wheel with the tire still on. It will give you this luxurious feel, a seamless transition between the rim and the tire. Also, do not remove any of the top layer dirt, just spray over it. This will give you a nice texture that will prove to be very durable. Also, just spray the quick release lever with it as well. It will all assist in creating a uniformity in the bike's color scheme. Any unwanted spots anywhere else on the bike? No worries, just get your mud black paint out and spray the problems away. Warning, from now onwards it might actually hurt to watch this video as a bike lover. Buckle up. The next problem to address are the brakes. Obviously, I'm a big fan of riding brakeless with foot retainment on a fixie. But this one will be single speed. And for the sake of it, let us only do a rear brake. Yes, I know, it hurts me too. Carefully twist the brake around and around and around. The cable will follow anyway, and if it doesn't, you are doing something wrong. You are the human in this process and you should always have the lead in what happens. You might want to consider to remove the nut on the back of the fork. And now it's time to go absolutely ham. Viewer discretion advised. Get that brake bolt out, even if it takes you a hex key or an index finger. You've got 2 of those anyway.
Done.
And now a short break, since it's time for a very special moment. This sticker was designed by a very talented upcoming graphic designer. Go check out his channel. There is a moment in every single build that you start questioning yourself, your intentions, what your values are, and why you do what you do. It can result in an exploratory stage with highly innovative results, or you can just discover that some moron used plastic bearing cups. But we will continue to show you guys how not to build a bike. We are getting there. This bike has almost finished going through the entire process of not being built. While following this tutorial, you might encounter what we encountered next, missing a ring that was snatched away from this bike for yet another bike, and having to use a non-fitting part instead. In our case, we had a ring with a positioning pin, but our front fork thread didn't have an opposite locating slot. This meant that we had to get the thing gone. Some filing later and all was ready to go again. This missing pin probably had a function once, but you should just be decisive and get the thing going. You will find out later what the function was when your bar suddenly rotates 360 degrees. Not to worry for now though, drastic times call for drastic measures. In the meantime, we had carried on and were reattaching a brake to the bike. Up next was our freshly painted still wet front wheel. And see those red pedals again? This is mandatory too, the pedals should always be off-red. It's like a brand thing, if you're a real one, you have off-red pedals. Ah, look at that lovely wobble. The other side of the braking system needs attention too. Firstly, attach a lever. But make sure it cannot be tightened tight by putting a little piece of bar tape under it. If you now are in an emergency, you will never get a solid grip, it will just rotate away. Moreover, use a second-hand abused end cap for your pink outer braking cable. It is the experience story again, and it will save you approximately 3 cents too. If it doesn't want to go on, just persuade it a little with an appropriate tool, like a hammer. Now get yourself a used braking cable, feed it all the way through the lovely pink outer and attach it to the brake. Next up, deny any sugar or tape addiction and make sure your bike gets some more street creds by wrapping the whole darn thing up in the ugliest 70s bar tape you can possibly find. Preferable with the worst possible texture and a gnarly color combination like pink, purple and silver. Wrapping a tube has something very therapeutic about it. Just layering these layers and wrapping these wraps, a very nice hobby to just do as a separate thing. Wrapping miles and miles of ugly panther pattern bar tape, that would be amazing. If anything gets in the way between you and your dream wrap, whip out an angle grinder and grind the problems away. And don't wait for the steel to cool before wrapping up over the spot. Containing heat in your frame is like adding a turbo to a car. It gives you more speed and power. It was time for a test. After all this careful planning and well-weighed of decisions, it was time to take a step back and subsequently step back forwards and get on the bike. For a bike that had just not been built, this thing rides very smoothly. Actually, so smoothly that I start wondering if we accidentally had built a bike all along. Afraid for the critiques of the masses, the rest of the day was used to wrap the entire bike in ugly bar tape and get a white paint marker out. And when it got dark, we dared to give the thing a go. Let's see what it looks like now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's our turn on how to not build a bike. I hope you still enjoyed it, and if you did, consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.